Today, I'll be getting the Platinum Trophies for Uncharted The Nathan Drake Collection. This includes the remastered versions of Uncharted Drake's Fortune, Uncharted 2 Among Thieves, and Uncharted 3 Drake's Deception. With a total of 142 trophies, come join me in this adventure of getting the Platinums for all 3 games. For each game, I will break it down into 3 steps. Step 1 is beating the game on the hardest difficulty and collecting all the treasures. Step 2 is complete the remainder combat challenges. Step 3 will be the speedrun trophies. Now, I have never played the first Uncharted, so this is my first experience with the game. I had to get accustomed to the controls, the gameplay, and mind you, playing on the hardest difficulty. We begin by getting to meet the main protagonist of the Uncharted series, Nathan Drake, who with the help of reporter Elena Fisher finds the coffin of Sir Francis Drake. Once open, we don't find a body but instead a journal. Elena pries Nate to show what's inside, but he declines as their deal was for only the coffin. Our conversation gets cut short as pirates come towards the boat. After dealing with them, we get picked up by Sully on his plane. We find in Francis' journal the location of El Dorado, and Nate and Sully decide to ditch Elena. Here's where I got my first trophy for collecting the treasure. There are a total of 61 treasures to collect, which is the least out of the 3 games. We find some tracks and follow them, which leads us to an abandoned ship. Once inside, Nate finds a corpse with coins on it and asks him an important question.
Now where'd you get this, my decomposing friend?
What?
Yeah, I don't know who's going to tell him that his pal won't be answering that. Later he finds the corpse of the captain with a map with coordinates to the treasure. We tell Sully this information, but he isn't answering, so Nate goes to check on him. That is when we meet Gabriel, Ramon, and find out that Sully owes him a lot of money. Nate ends up giving the map that he just found to save both of their lives, however Roman has other plans. He shoots Sully and afterwards an explosion happens which allows Nate to escape. We encounter Elena who followed us and gave us a receipt for ditching her. Nate tells her that Sully is dead and that they must leave before they're dead too. We find Elena's car and head to the coordinates of where the treasure is located. Flying to the island, they are ambushed and must parachute out of the plane. Elena seems to have no issue with her parachute, however Nate's has a hole in it, making it difficult to navigate and splitting up both of them. I got a treasure and some combat related trophies. If you ever wondered what the crushing difficulty is like, watch as I suffer over and over again in this one section here. This is pretty much what every encounter throughout the game is like, and nothing feels better after defeating an area, only to get stuck on another section shortly afterward. We find our plane and pick up the map, but notice Elena's parachute in the distance and head in that direction. This next section was the breaking point for me as I kept dying and ready to quit on getting the platinum. Thankfully, I made it through and noticed Elena, however I got captured. Nate wakes up when Elena throws rocks at him and he finds out Eddie Raja has him locked up as he also wants the gold. Elena helps with our escape from the cell and Nate grabs back the map. Our escape is put on hold as we meet a dead end and Eddie blocks the path. Nate, with not many options, decides to reverse off the bridge into the water. The water leads us to an island and Elena shows Nate with her camera a boat to escape and forget about the gold, but Elena insists that they should continue. She convinces him not to give up. I snag some more combat and treasure trophies. Afterwards, we make it to the boat, but Elena wants to show us something important and we find out that Sully is alive. With that information, it motivates Nate to keep going and find Sully so he can question him. In our quest for the gold, we go to a wooden bridge and Elena falls through a board and has to let go of her camera so Nate can pull her up. More combat and treasure trophies were acquired. We catch up where Sully is and get spotted by the enemy. After defeating them, Nate questions Sully and finds out that Roman has a contract out for him. Nate blames Sully for not keeping his mouth shut and how they could have had the treasure by now. Sully retaliates by saying Nate should have checked his pulse before leaving him to death. Sully reveals that he survived the gunshot because of Francis's book in his pocket. With the book back into our possession, we have all the clues to lead us to the gold. We find a secret passage and Nate decides to go in it alone. Elena tells him to be careful and smacks his head on the wall. Afterward, I got another trophy. We catch up to Roman and Eddie arguing about the gold, and Navarro insists that going for El Dorado is worth it. I got another treasure related trophy. Nate finds where the treasure vault is, but all of Roman and Navarro's men are standing on top of it, thanks to Sully pointing them to the location, even though it was meant to keep them occupied. I got another combat trophy. Later we find a strange catacomb and Nate and Elena head inside, but Sully doesn't as there is a trap and Nate pushes him to save him from getting crushed. After making our way through the catacomb, we find the remains of Sir Francis Drake. Shortly after, Eddie catches up to us and we find our first encounter with these Wendigo looking creatures called Descendants. Eddie and I fend them off, however one of them manages to take out Eddie by biting his neck. Another wave of Descendants down and we escape from them by locking the door. We find another clue and head towards it alone. I get 2 combat trophies. Nate finds a note from Francis Drake that explains the gold of El Dorado has a curse that turns people into descendants. With not many options, he tasks himself to prevent the curse from leaving the island. We go back to where we left Elena, but she is captured by Roman and Navarro, and she warns us to leave but gets punched. They use her as a bargaining chip to prevent Sully and Nate from trying to stop them from finding El Dorado. Now our mission is to rescue Elena. While heading to them, I got more combat trophies and the final treasure trophy for collecting all of them. As we catch up to Elena, we get 2 gunmen pointing weapons at our heads and surrender our guns. Roman opens the statue, letting the curse consume him. Navarro shoots him and proceeds to take the statue with him. We get interrupted by more descendants and have to prevent Navarro from leaving with the statue. Nate manages to hitch a ride by hanging onto the statue as the helicopter proceeds to leave. They notice that, but Elena helps by kicking the gunman out of the chopper and proceeds to shoot the pilot. We end up landing on a boat, which is the final section of the game. Nate catches up where the chopper crashed, but Navarro prevents him from getting to it. We beat him up, finishing the story and getting all difficulty trophies. Nate checks on Elena and gives a final push to the chopper and ultimately takes out Navarro and the statue. Sully comes to the rescue with a boat, and Nate is upset that he came empty-handed in this adventure, but Elena gives him back Francis's ring that he left. Our romantic moment gets cut short as Sully is ready to leave on the boat he stole as it has some treasure on it. The gang leaves and heads towards the sunset as we finish the story. In total, it took me less than 8 hours to beat the game. Now all that is left is to complete the remaining combat challenges and speed runs. One of the challenges was to kill 5 enemies in a row with a brutal combo. I also got the kill 20 enemies with a brutal combo. Another for killing 5 enemies with a single punch after shooting them first and for doing it 10 times in a row. Next was to get 10 kills with grenades while hanging and 20 with guns while hanging. Another for 50 stealth kills and pick up the last 2 weapon trophies. Lastly were the speedrun trophies for completing 3 chapters under a certain time, and they were fairly simple as I was playing on the easiest difficulty. One of the final trophies was to kill 75 enemies in a row without dying, and I managed to get to 72 on a crushing difficulty, so I picked an easy chapter and got the trophy. The last trophy I left for the end was to use photo mode for the first time, and as I enabled it, I got the trophy and I achieved the platinum for Uncharted 1. It took me just under 10 hours to get all the trophies. As this was my first experience with the game, I enjoyed the story and glad that it got sequels which I played when I was younger. Now let's start the platinum run for Uncharted 2. We begin sometime later after the first Uncharted by waking up wounded inside a train and falling off a chair, only to find out that the train is hanging off a mountain. Nate climbs his way to the top of the train, but as he does that, it begins to slowly slip off the cliff and has to pull off a move you would see in a Mission Impossible movie by jumping off last second to save himself from death. Also, starting with Uncharted 2 and heading to Uncharted 3, Nate will be pulling off some wild death-defying stunts That makes me wonder if any of it is worth it, and that he would probably be better off staying home. After climbing up the cliff, Nate passes out, and we get a flashback of the past that would hopefully explain our current situation. We meet our friend Harry Flynn, who is looking for us to do a job acquiring a certain object. However, Nate declines the offer as 2 people died attempting to steal this object. Harry insists Nate's help as it is a 3-person job, and that is when we are introduced to Chloe Fraser. Harry explains his plan and shows us the object we are stealing. Nate tells them that it is worthless and not worth the hassle, but Harry gives him a paper written by Marco Polo, which intrigues Nate. After deciphering the paper, he believes that there's a clue in the lamp that will lead them to a treasure and accepts the job.
And what could possibly go wrong?
I don't know, Nate, maybe getting stuck on a mountain and slowly bleeding to death. We go back to the present, waking up and picking up our first treasure trophy. Both Uncharted 2 and 3 have 101 treasures to collect, which is way more than the first one. Later, an explosion sends Nate into a train car and he gets flipped over multiple times while inside, knocking him out. We go back to the past just before we gear up for the job and have a conversation with Chloe. We find out that there is a history between Nate and Chloe. She tells us that once Harry was onto something, she clued him in on getting Nate on their team to pull off the heist. After finding the treasure, they would split it 3 ways and Chloe and Nate will disappear together. Back to the present, Nate gets up and finds a strange object in the snow and picks it up. Then we go to the past on the night of the heist and make our way through the sewer. Nate and Harry split up from Chloe as her task is to be done alone. We make it to where the lamp is being kept, break it open and find a map inside, only to find out that it is unreadable. Nate realizes the material of the lamp had risen and lighting it up makes the information available. It's a map that will lead them to Shambhala. We decide it is time to go, only for Harry to betray us and leave us behind. He pulls a gun on him and shoots the glass containing objects, triggering an alarm, making every guard come to our location. Nate manages to escape but gets caught coming out of the manhole. We find out that Nate has been in prison for 3 months. He has gone mad by reliving his last scenario with Harry with his hands as puppets.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
It gets interrupted by Sully, who has come to bail us out. He tells us that Chloe asked for his help and Nate doesn't trust her after what Harry pulled on him, so he ignores her. Sully mentions that Harry and his client found the ships of Marco Polo, but not the treasure. We leave the prison and plan our next move to steal files that could lead them to the stone. I get my first 2 combat trophies. Nate and Sully make it to Harry's client Zoran Lazarevich's camp and find out just how brutal this man is by stabbing one of his men who was caught stealing. We set off some charges that we planned to get them out of the camp and sneak in. Nate finds the file and finds out that the stone is not here, it is in Shambhala, which is what Lazarevich is looking for. I collected more trophies. We picked up the trail of Marco Polo's crew and find the object that the present Nate found in the snow with a map. It tells us that our next location is Nepal and that the object is a key. We leave the cave and Chloe goes on ahead, but Harry's team is outside and she betrays us. She takes the map that we found and gives it to Harry and he sends us to Lazarevich, but Chloe ends up helping us by taking out both guards. She gets injured but uses it as an excuse to make Nate and Sully's escape believable and tells us to meet her in Nepal. We get trapped at the edge of a cliff and with no other options we jump off into the water. Yippee! Nate makes it to Nepal, but Sully decides he is too old for this and lets him go by himself. Another treasure trophy was collected. We get saved by Chloe with an RPG and use the dagger to find our next clue and decide it is best to head to the tallest building in the city. While heading there, I got a couple of combat trophies. We make it to the top of the building and our next location is right in the middle of Lazarevich's camp. A helicopter spots us and we try our best to escape from it, but it won't leave us alone. The building we are in is being destroyed and the only logical thing to do is jump out of it into another building as if we were John Wick. Nate takes down the pesky chopper and shortly after he finds Elena, both of whom are shocked to see each other. She has a cameraman with her named Jeff who tackles us to the ground. He apologizes and offers to give us a hand, but Nate declines to help. She tells him that she is after Lazarevich to prove that he is not dead like how the government thinks. Chloe catches up to us and tells us to keep moving to stay ahead of Lazarevich, and Nate tells her that they are coming with us. Chloe disagrees with him, but it is too late as they are ambushed. We all make it to the temple that will lead us to Shambhala and head inside to avoid being spotted. Nate and Chloe leave Elena and Jeff alone as they go to solve the next clue that gives them the precise location of Shambhala. They head outside and find out that Jeff has been shot. Nate tries to be the hero and help Jeff, but Chloe thinks it is not worth saving him and blames him if they get killed. Making our way through the city, we find a path to escape by dropping out of a building, but it will be impossible for Jeff to do with his condition. Chloe argues for the three of them to leave, but Nate and Elena don't want to and tell her to go. Some men are heading towards them, and we reunite with Harry as Chloe once again turns her back on us. With Nate and Elena outnumbered, they drop their guns while Harry tells his men to take Chloe away. As this is happening, Lazarevich shows up and meets Nate face to face for the first time. He grabs the dagger off from us and kills Jeff. He also asks what we found in the temple, and Nate promises to show him where the stone is, but only if he lets Elena go. Harry searches our body and finds the map to Shambhala and tells Nate that he doesn't need him anymore, and for Harry to take care of us. We get the upper hand for a second and make our escape. Nate decides to go after Chloe so Lazarevich doesn't hurt her when they find out that she double-crossed them. More trophies were obtained. As we head toward Chloe, we see multiple enemies surrounding the area and come up with a perfect plan.
Wait, just listen. You never listen. Meanwhile, you're gonna go over there, snag us one of those nice-looking
4x4s.
4x4s. You're gonna be the wheelman. I'll sneak in, I'll grab Chloe. You come in right behind us.
With the getaway car.
With the getaway car.
Got a weapon trophy with the FAL. The plan was a failure as the train left, so we used the car to catch it and jump aboard. While on the train, a chopper attacks us and starts blowing up the train cars and nearly die multiple times. Picked up more combat trophies. Nate uses a tank that was sitting on the train to take out the helicopter. As he makes it to the front of the train, we beat up a guard who has the dagger but manages to still fight back and get saved once again by Chloe. She tells us that she isn't looking to be saved by him and tells him to get off the train. Nate gets shot by Harry, which explains our wound from the beginning of the game. Harry sends his men to take Nate out, but he has the idea to shoot some convenient propane tanks that separate the carts and finally understand how President Nate got into this situation. Making our way through the snowstorm, a mysterious man rescues us. We don't understand a word he is saying, but proceed to follow him as he did save our lives. He takes us to Elena and tells her all that happened on the train and meets Carl Schaefer. He tells us that he too was looking for Shambhala when he was younger and informs us that the dagger we found is the actual key to Shambhala. But Nate is through with trying to find Shambhala and gives up the quest. Carl convinces Nate to go with our savior Tenzin to find his expedition remains to prove why he mustn't give up yet. Nate asks Tenzin an important question.
What's it say? Why do I ask?
As we traveled through the ice cavern, we encountered a Yeti monster that obliterates Tenzin. Nate gets grabbed by it, but Tenzin clutches up by stabbing it multiple times and leaving us alone. We make it to Carl's expedition and find out that Carl killed his men as it was the only way to stop them once they possessed the stone. More of those beasts show up and we manage to fend them off just enough to escape. As Nate and Tenzin surface, they see the village being burned down. They head there as quickly as they can. Lazarevich's men were behind the attack and kidnapped Carl and decide to go after them. Grabbed some combat trophies. Elena and I steal a truck and head in Carl's direction. We make it to the final car but slide off the cliff due to an RPG blast. We miraculously survive and head towards the monastery. I collect more trophies heading towards Carl. We find Carl bleeding to death and with his last breath tells us that Lazarevich has the dagger and tells us to stop him by destroying the stone. Elena and I split up as she looked for the secret entrance to Shambhala and I retrieved back the dagger. Nate catches up to them and Lazarevich is frustrated that Harry can't find the entrance. Harry leaves the dagger with Chloe and we use this opportunity to take it back. Chloe decides to give it to us under the condition that we take Lazarevich down. Later we find the secret entrance, but Lazarevich is right behind us, so we take one of his men as a hostage. He threatens us to show him the passage to Shambhala and we decline to help, so he shoots his men in the head. He threatens the lives of Chloe and Elena by killing one of them and letting the other live so that we would cooperate. Nate decides to do what he is told so no one gets hurt and uses the stones to show the gate to Shambhala. Harry and I go solve the puzzle so that the path is crossable. As soon as we solve it, we get jumped by more beasts and get help from Lazarevich. We find out that they are just a costume being worn by guardians to prevent them from finding the stone. Harry decides that Nate's life should end, but Lazarevich tells him not yet, as he wants us to see Shambhala first, then kill us. With the gate of Shambhala open and all of us seeing it, we get ambushed by guardians and use it as a chance to escape. We regroup and Chloe says that they should leave while they still have a chance, but Nate and Elena want to head to the stone and destroy it. Chloe gets convinced and plans to save the world with the two of them. Progressing through the story, I get another combat trophy and the final 2 treasure trophies. We beat them to the stone, but realize that the stone is nothing more than a tree sap. What we must destroy is the tree of life sap down there where Lazarevich is heading. Harry catches up to us all wounded and blows himself up with a grenade. Nate and Chloe were barely hurt, but Elena took most of the damage. We pick her up and continue towards Lazarevich, but she is too wounded to keep going, so Nate tells Chloe to head to the exit while he goes and stops him alone. We make it to Lazarevich, but it is too late as he consumes some of the sap and his body slowly starts to heal. We shoot the resin, causing an explosion, killing all of those around it except for him as he starts to get up. Nate fights him off and Lazarevich gives his villain monologue and tells him to kill him, but Nate refuses. Instead, he will let the Guardians finish the job. We escape Shambhala as it starts to crumble and get some assistance from Chloe. We get Elena out, but she isn't breathing. Nate is then back in Tensen's village. We say our goodbyes to Chloe and find out that Elena is alive and with Sully. He heads in Chloe's direction while Nate and Elena embrace and finish the story, grabbing all difficulty trophies. It took just under 10 hours to beat the game, and it's time to collect the remaining combat trophies. With those challenges completed, all that is left are the speedrun trophies for certain chapters. The final trophy I left for myself was to use photo mode, and with that, I got the second platinum for Uncharted 2. It took me just under 12 hours to earn the platinum. Replaying this game after almost a decade brought so much nostalgia and glad I got to experience once again. I also found my original copy and appreciate that I still kept it all these years. If you guys have been enjoying this journey so far, consider subscribing for more content and leave a comment on which of the trilogy is your favorite. Now let's start the platinum run for Uncharted 3. We begin with Nate and Sully meeting a man by the name of Talbot, who was looking to purchase Nate's ring that was his ancestor. He checks to see if it's the real deal, however they notice that the money he is offering is fake and the deal is off. All hell breaks loose as a fight ensues throughout the bar. We encounter a new enemy type in this franchise called Brute, and he sent us flying through a window to the first floor. Sully and I beat all of them up and pick up my first trophy. Now I won't be showing all the trophies collected as they are almost identical to the first 2 games, but they did add some unique ones that I will be showing. Nate and Sully leave the bar only to be cornered in the alleyway. A mysterious car pulls up and we meet a woman called Marlo who they already know. She takes the ring and both of them get shot. We then go back 20 years in the past and play as young Nate. He notices a strange man whom we know as Sully using a key on a case that he wants open, so he steals his wallet. He catches us and wants his wallet back, so we give it back, but not without taking the key out first. Nate heads back to the museum and unlocks the case, but gets interrupted by Marlo and Sully. She asks for the ring by slapping Nate, and she is going to do it again until Sully intervenes, giving Nate the chance to run. We get chased through the rooftops, accidentally killing a man, and are in a stalemate with a gunman, but get saved by Sully as he shoots him. He takes us to a safe place, introduces himself to Nate, and we explain why the ring and the decoding device are important as he believes it will lead to treasure. The only issue is that Marlowe has the device, but we got the ring. Sully says he would teach us a few things if we stick by him, and finally introduce ourselves. Now that we know how Nate and Sully first met, we go back just a few moments after being shot and find out we are fine. Charlie is a part of our crew, and we meet up with Chloe, who follows Marlowe's car, and we head to their direction. Once inside, we see there is no car and find a secret entrance that left tire marks, so the three of us head in that direction while Chloe stays behind with the car. We catch up to them and see her try to use the decoder with the ring, but we gave her a fake one and believe they were followed. They decide to look for us and leave behind the device, so we use the actual ring that gives us our next clue. We get ambushed by her men and make our escape. Nate tells the crew that they need to head to Syria and France for the next clue and split up so they can save some time. While in France, Talbot's men follow us and grab the artifact we found. Strange noises start to happen and we get surrounded by spiders. Talbot closes the door, leaving us with no easy escape. Once we escape, the building we are in is on fire and must get out quickly before it collapses on them. As we are outside, Nate thinks that Charlie and Chloe could have been followed, so they head to Syria as quickly as possible to warn them. Nate and Sully catch up to them, and they tell us to head to the highest point of the castle for the next clue. We head there, but Talbot is already here and shoots Charlie with a mind control drug, grabs the journal, and tells him not to trust Nate. The rest of the crew notices what's happening, but he disappears with the journal. Charlie attacks Nate, but stops once Chloe and Sully intervene and apologizes for his action. We get into a stalemate with Talbot and his men, but Charlie decides to point his gun at us, so we relinquish our weapons. Talbot tells him to pull the trigger, and Charlie does, but he shoots Talbot instead, giving us time to run. We get separated during the escape, and with not many options left, Charlie jumps, breaking his leg. We pick him up and steal a bus before Marlowe's men reach us. Chloe says it isn't worth it for what they are looking for, but Charlie says to keep going. Our next stop is Yemen, where we meet Elena, who helped us by getting media passes. We find out that Nate and Elena were married, and she is still wearing her ring. The three of them make it into the city and notice that Talbot is also there. Nate follows him, but Talbot gets the upper hand and throws us through a window, but we manage to steal back the journal. In this section, we get one of the unique trophies, where we had to hit 3 enemies with a fish. Afterwards, we hide in a building and tell Elena everything that has happened, and without realizing it, they are on top of the next clue. We head inside the secret entrance, get coordinates to Iran, and tell Sully to remember it because if they write it down, it could be stolen by Marlowe. During this, we get interrupted by more spiders. After surviving our second encounter with spiders, Nate gets drugged just like Charlie, making him start going crazy. He wakes up in front of Marlowe and asks for our help to find Sully, as he's the one who has the Iran coordinates. Talbot tells her that they found him, so they don't need Nate anymore, so he makes a break for it and chases Talbot. We get him cornered, but get attacked from behind by Ramses and are taken to his ship. He tells us the only reason we are still alive is because of him and asks us where Iram is. Since we don't know, he threatens to hurt Sully as he is also on the ship. As he leaves, Nate is left trapped in a room full of pirates and must fight them off. Making our way to Sully, we get hit by a big wave, but that doesn't stop us. We later find a swimming pool and jump in it for a trophy, which I believe is a reference to Uncharted 2.
Hey, check it out. Marco.
Really?
Come on.
No.
Marco.
Nate finds Sully, or so he thinks, and gets ambushed by Ramses and his pirates, so Nate pulls a John Wick maneuver by stealing an enemy grenade and shoots Ramses in a quick motion, creating a hole in the ship. Here's where I got another unique trophy for killing 5 right shield enemies by running over their shield. We must find an exit for this ship quickly as it starts to sink and water is coming through.
Can't get much worse than this.
It gets even worse as Ramses finds us and shoots the glass, causing all the water to head towards us. Nate manages to exit the ship and wakes up on the shore of Yemen. He heads to Elena and asks about Sully, and she says he's alive but Marlowe has him. Nate insists on leaving right away, but they already have a 2-day head start. Elena comes up with a plan to head to the airport and be on a plane that will make a supply drop to Marlowe. We get to the airport and find a cargo plane. Nate decides it is best to do this alone, as he doesn't want to risk losing Elena again, and tells her to take the jeep and leave. She obliges. As soon as we said our goodbyes, the plane started to take off and Nate wouldn't make it on foot, but thankfully Elena came in clutch with the jeep and took us to the landing gear so we could sneak in. However, as soon as we get in, we get spotted by the enemy and fight him on the entrance trap. Nate gets the upper hand and uses some of the cargo to take him out of the plane. This causes a chain reaction and we get sent flying out of the plane for a brief moment as we recover by holding onto a truck. We make our way back inside to find a parachute, but it is too late as the plane has a giant hole in the middle causing us to fall out. Nate has been studying his Tom Cruise films and manages to grab a supply box with a parachute on it before his demise. As we land in the middle of a desert, we get this awesome shot of Nate that almost resembles the cover of the game, which I still have. Making our way through the desert, we encountered a man who helps us and takes us to his camp. He tells us his name is Salim and asks for his help. He asks why Marlo's crew is here, and Nate tells him that they are looking for the lost city of Ubar with the help of our friend who's been taken hostage. Salim agrees to help and plans on attacking them in the morning. During the rescue, we get Sully to safety and catch up with him, but it is cut short as we must hurry before Marlo's gang reaches the city. We head straight into a dust storm and get separated from Salim and go on foot. Nate and Sully make it to the lost city and find out that they have clean water as he drinks some. They notice an eclipse and hear a gunshot. It's Sully who has been shot by Talbot and dies in our arms. With Sully gone, Nate heads straight for Marlo and Talbot, where he drops a drug gas and Nate starts to have strange hallucinations where he's back in Colombia and surrounded by spiders. He also turns back into his younger self and relives the same moment when Sully saves him on a rooftop but instead has to shoot him. He wakes up from the gas, making his way through the city and hears a familiar voice.
That you, kid?
It's Sully. He doesn't believe he's real, so he proves it to him.
Ow!
That real enough for you?
Sully explains to us that we went nuts after drinking the water earlier, which caused the city to be destroyed as it is tainted, which is what Marlo and Talbot are after. We catch up to them and decide to flank them as we are outnumbered. Sully prevents Talbot from shooting us but ends up getting knocked into the water. Nate hurries to help him from consuming any of the tainted water and shoots the crane off. After resurfacing, they get stopped by Marlo and Talbot, and the floor below them starts to crumble and reveals the city is sinking. Nate, Sully, and Talbot all make it out fine, but Marlo is in the middle and is quickly sinking. Nate, being the hero that he is, decides to help her, but it is too late as she sinks underneath the sand along with our ancestor ring. With the city sinking, Sully and I must make our way to higher ground and exit before they get buried, but get stopped by Talbot. He's still upset that we didn't save Marlo and fight him. We beat the crap out of him, but he manages to get the upper hand until Sully puts a bullet in his back. As the structure we are on starts to crumble, it makes Sully drop the gun and makes Nate fall off it. Nate grabs the gun and puts an end to Talbot, and I get all the difficulty trophies for beating the game.
It's no good. Buddy, get on!
The three of us make it out alive and Sully manages to steal some treasure. Nate and Sully head back to the airport and Sully gives us our wedding ring that we thought we lost and gives a remarkable quote to live by.
Here's the thing, kid. We don't get to choose how we start in this life. Real greatness, it's what you do with the hand you dealt.
Afterwards, Elena and Nate embrace and the three of them are ready to get on the plane. Sully has a different transportation plan for us. It's a similar plane that we wrecked in the first Uncharted. The three of us head to it and we complete the story. It took me just under 7 hours to beat the game, and now it's time to collect the remaining combat trophies. The first one is another unique trophy as we are tasked to kill 10 enemies in a row, switching from hand to hand to gunfire. Another unique trophy is with a new enemy type where we must successfully counter all of the brute's attack. One of the things that made it easy is that we get button prompts on easier difficulty. We get a trophy for defeating 20 enemies while swimming. In this game, there's a new mechanic where you can throw back grenades, and there are 2 trophies with it for killing 2 at once and for 10 kills. With those challenges completed, all that is left are the speedrun trophies for certain chapters. The final trophy I left for myself was to use photo mode, and with that, I got the final platinum for this video. It took me just about 10 hours to earn the platinum. So that is my Uncharted Platinum journey of the Nathan Drake collection. And please subscribe if you enjoyed it, and hope everyone has a good day.